So ready. Probably gonna be a bit of time. Always come back to that. See what else is going on. Hop in and out of people's streams, yeah. Or shows, whatever. Ignore that. Very spur of the moment. When I kind of have chat up. Starship. Sure, it's gonna be a bit of time. I think like they adjusted, and if we do take off, that might be at like 8 a.m. See who's live. Yeah, no. I just did this because a lot of people have their like chats to like members only or no chat at all, and I want to talk to people while I'm waiting.
Absolutely beautiful right now, and to think that we are finally here at a point where this thing is getting ready to launch in just over an hour and 20 minutes is utterly bonkers
It's
in the
insane.
best way.
So exciting. And for anyone just wondering, I have had a look at the WB-57 that is in the air at the moment. It's still flying south. It's missed Boca Chica, but I presume yes, it's now turning left again. So it will be orbiting just over the border between the US and Mexico. So you can see there, we can't see there, but I can see that it is beginning that kind of holding pattern above Starbase, which means, fingers crossed,
Here we
we
go.
should
There
be
it
able
is.
to...
That's
There is the WB-57. Look at that.
It's trying to. It will now start to turn over Starbase and start to circle around.
There you go. So we're ready. NASA's aircraft are ready. I think the only people we're waiting on now is SpaceX to get this super massive vehicle filled up to the brim with some lovely liquid
Oh
oxygen
man, that
and
looks
some lovely
beautiful.
liquid methane. You can see the oxygen tank on the booster
I got like an hour and a
now
half.
is
Man.
starting. I'd say that's probably about 1/5 of the way full up now. So yeah, we are getting proper frosty now, all the way starting to fill up with the ship fueling meant to have begun at 1 hour and 22 minutes, T-minus 1 hour and 22 minutes. Alex saying in the back channel that the vent looks healthy. So yeah, fingers crossed, we're still on for a launch in just 1 hour and 20 minutes time, which sounds astounding to say, considering how long we've been waiting for this. It is so exciting and also
Alarm just
quite
went off.
nerve-wracking because we really want this to go well, don't we, Jack?
Yeah, nerve wracking
Doubly,
is
triply
absolutely
prepared for this.
correct. Oh man, when you're dealing with the amount of propellants that are going to be loaded into this vehicle, it's no joke. If they went
See what I mean?
stoichiometric
The
and
subscribers
combined
only
in just the
mode.
wrong way and found an
Go
ignition
over that.
source, uh, you have one of the
Give them
largest,
their
if not
like
the
though. Get
largest,
that auto
non-nuclear
liker
explosion
going
in
on.
all of history. So that's something to consider. Oh wow, look at that shot. We're all very excited, and we're all, sort of reveling in the moment here, rightfully so. At the same time, I think it's good that you point that out, Ryan.
Beautiful.
That this is in fact nerve wracking. Obviously, SpaceX is extremely capable
Well,
and is doing things with an utmost of caution.
Joe
So it's not
Biden's
like
just
we're
straight up not a
riding
fan.
the bleeding edge here or anything.
Hate to say it would be a little different if it was Trump. You like hover over it to see if that's got anything actually going on. A lot of these streams don't have a lot going on. I know this one does.
You know, that's the crazy thing about this is they've only done the belly flop test, which don't stress the vehicle at all in the sense of heating, you know, from reentry. Don't forget the heat load on the vehicle doesn't go up by the square of velocity. So say you double the speed of something through a fluid, the reentry heating doesn't double, which would be, you know, linear. It doesn't go by the square, so it's not like if you're going twice as fast, you get 4 times as much heat. It actually goes by the cube. So if you're going twice as fast as a different profile, you're experiencing 8 times the amount of heat on the vehicle, which is absurd. So the best way to test Starship is to get it going, you know, nearly orbital, and that's exactly what they're doing here. The profile is intentionally suborbital, but they're taking the long way around. This allows them to test the full booster, do stage separation, light the upper stage engines. Sorry, there's 6 Raptors on the upper stage. Yeah, and there's 3 vacuum optimized Raptors and 3 sea level Raptors, and they need all of those to be able to push this thing into its orbit ish, and then it will re-enter in north of Hawaii, northwest of Hawaii. All right. Again, one more time, X-Viper, X1, the loud hissing noise on stream is the pad. You're hearing the fuel up of the rocket. So that's
a similar sound to that overtone. I understand that, but
yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, the waves in some of these shots, that's why you don't, you know, we had Gene, our friend Gene, mention, you know, be careful, don't go swimming because there's riptide currents and stuff like that. It can be nasty out there. You're better if you have never been in. This is not even the ocean. This is the Gulf of Mexico. Yet, pretty strong currents sometimes.
Yeah,
so.
And if you're here at Isla Blanca Park, don't stand on the jetty. I think
not
that's
today.
Yeah.
If the jetty's wet, don't go on it. That's the rule. Yep. All right. Why is Starship not going to be doing a landing burn like the booster's going to do? So basically, you know, the Starship, the upper stage will do the belly flop, but it won't do the kick and the landing attempt at all. I think there's a few reasons for that, and my number one reason is I really just think they're not ready to test that far yet. Why even worry on the programming? You know, they've already practiced that portion. They know they can do that. For now, they're focusing on maximizing the success of the first half. And eventually, you know, if this test goes well, and if it gets all the way to reentry, who knows that I'm making dumb predictions here. Who knows the heat shield tiles might not even make it to orbit or to to space, let alone through reentry. So if stuff like that, if they need to make major changes, there's no point in them, you know, sitting there programming this entire reentry for this particular vehicle when it, you know, might not get that far. They're trying to just do the minimum viable product at this point today. They're just trying to get as much data as they can. We don't necessarily know, you know, how much data that's going to be. Is it going to be, you know, is it going to be full? It's just there's no way of knowing. Is it, you know, is it going to be stage separation? Are we going to get through max Q? Or is it going to get off the pad? Like that's the questions in their mind right now is how far are we going to get it? And obviously the biggest thing is they believe. The FAA believes it's going to get off the pad. It's going to be safe for everyone here. You know, people live, work, grew up here. No one wants anything bad to happen here. I mean, obviously, we've invested. My life savings is right here.
My life is here.
Your life is here. No one wants anything bad to happen, and there's a very fair degree of confidence that it's going to get off the pad and at least make its way towards orbit. And I actually the vehicles. I mean, it's not the prettiest vehicle still yet.
No, and that's what I love about SpaceX is that it's like the engineering programmer type mentality of release that thing early and iterate often. Yep. So just get it out there, test what you need to test now, and then we'll get to the next phase.
Yep, exactly.
Right?
Don't spend so much time. It's like a sunk cost fallacy. Almost like, well, we have this rocket, we might as well try and do everything. It's like, no, we have 15 more vehicles basically waiting.
Just pumping them out.
At this time, they're just wanting to send it to clear the pad and get to the next one because the next one would be a lot, you know, more, just more gooder.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fueling
So
of
on that note,
Starship's
what will
upper
happen to the second
stage
stage
is now
to Starship?
underway.
It'll
Via
re-enter
space.
and it will belly flop into the ocean. It'll go. It'll take a big giant. It'll do the world's
Ooh.
biggest, most powerful belly flop ever.
Yeah.
If it makes it that far, yeah. Which is ridiculous. This is also, yeah, again, fun news. The WB-57 plane, the tracking plane, will be arriving in a couple minutes. That was probably really, really old. We might be I'm so sorry, guys. I'm going to be missing almost everything that you say. So on that note, I am
Go to the launch pad.
So we're putting up a poll in the chat there. How do you think the flight will go? Do you think Starship will splash down over by Hawaii? Do you think we're going to have a RUD
I mean, I
during
think we're either
re-entry,
gonna have a
RUD during
splash
second
down
stage
or a
flight,
re-entry.
or RUD during first stage flight? I'm not even giving an option of a RUD on the pad because we're too close for that. Sean is asking, will it be visible from Tennessee if the launch is successful? If you are anywhere along the Gulf of Mexico and you have clear skies, you may be able to see today's flight, but we'll keep a close eye on that weather. But honestly, your best bet's going to be watching probably from the stream unless you're actually down here.
Right? I'm in Colorado, so watching through streams.
Probably end up adding another 3 vacuum engines. They kind of, fill in the gaps and stretch the ship. I think is going to make a lot of sense. You'll have to yell, unfortunately. We are building a launch site, a Starship launch tower at 39A at Cape Kennedy. And we are also building a Starship production facility at the Cape. So we'll have production facility and launch site here and a production facility and launch site at the Cape as well. It's important to have redundancy.
Hi, Elon. It's Irene Klotz with Aviation Week over here.
I've got lights in my eyes, so unfortunately I can't see.
Okay, well,
I'm blinded. So well, I can hear where the speaker is coming from.
Okay.
But,
you should. I believe you're expecting to hear in a couple weeks about the possible finding of no significant impact from the FAA. Have you gotten any indications if that's going to come through, and what is your time frame for the orbital flight test? Thanks.
well, we don't have a ton of insight into where things stand with the FAA. We have gotten sort of a rough indication that there may be an approval in March, but that's all we know.
So, hi, Elon. Marcus Hervey. Can you talk about the point-to-point capability? Is there a possibility between here and Cape Canaveral?
Oh, well, yeah, I guess technically yes. So, I mean, depending on how good things get with Starship, there are some scenarios where it might actually be the lowest cost means of transporting cargo long distances. So the interesting thing is that the capital efficiency of a rocket is much better than the capital efficiency of a plane for long distance flights. So now this would really be more for, if you're going like, I don't know, a quarter or a third or halfway around the world. Hey.
Hello, everyone. I am glad that you are here today because
I don't really know if that was like one of those. A lot of people try to pretend, or it's an announcement from like Elon or whatever that obviously was him, but it was probably recycled footage from a prior event. But I mean, it was nice to hear some information, right?
Here. So yeah,
Kind of my way of saying
really
ignore
hard
the
to,
pinned
say.
tweet.
This is awesome. Thank you so much from Andreas. This is awesome. Thank you so much. Hi from Hong Kong. My body is ready. Go Starship. Go Everyday Astronaut. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Let's see. This is from Jonathan. Why won't they try to bring Starship vertically? Bring back Starship vertically and the booster? Well, for the very first one here, that's a tall order. Again, kind of minimal viable product. Why? First off, we don't know, how far it's going to succeed, and we don't know how it's going to do, how it's going to fare. So, yeah, they're really just worried about, is this thing going to survive liftoff, survive max Q, survive stage separation? Can we light the upper stage? They're just trying to do the bare minimum for now. See how it does before they spend any more time on the next one. Because, why do all that stuff if there's an inherent flaw?
Yeah.
Like, test it early, test it often.
This is the SpaceX way,
Yeah.
and it's so different from all of the other rocket companies. I feel I don't think there's another that's really following this kind of fast, iterative
Not
approach.
to this degree.
Yeah.
Maybe Stoke.
Yeah.
Stoke is doing. They're doing a hopper. I haven't seen a hopper from anybody else, so they can practice hovering and touching down an upper stage before they do it at a large scale. Like I love that stuff. I love that there are people doing that kind of stuff. So it's the SpaceX way is test early, test often, and don't worry about if it's going to be perfect, because it's not. It doesn't matter yet. Not until there's payload. So just getting this thing off the ground, and if they get to stage separation, I mean that's a huge win. If they light the upper stage, if Starship lights 6 Raptor engines today, I mean that's
success.
That's absolutely huge, because from there on, then they can start focusing on the other aspects of it.
Yeah.
But at that point, they could do almost anything with that rocket.
Yeah.
Maybe not reuse it quite yet, but they can do a lot of things with that rocket.
At T minus 1 hour, 1 hour and 5 minutes, can we talk a little bit about what we can expect? Like, is there any other scenario that we should be expecting that's a potential for today?
You mean as far as like scrubs and stuff like that, or what do you mean potential like?
Yeah, I mean, so if we light those engines, amazing. But
Right.
what else could happen today?
I mean, realistically, there's a good chance that they light the engines and then just go, we don't like what we see, and they shut it down.
Yeah.
That's a very likely possibility for the first one. If a handful of engines don't light, or if there's a leak, or if there's a handful of things that they just might not love. And for that reason, we might see a scrub.
Yes.
And if that's the case, I believe it's a few days reset. It likely would be about a 2-day reset, I think, would be the next opportunity. It's a developmental rocket. This is the first time they've had this rocket on the pad ready to launch. So
hard to know.
I know.
Hard to know what's going to happen.
Really, really, really hard to know what's going to happen. So I'm expecting to see a scrub. Frankly, like I'm like 50% is scrubs. Yeah, and that's okay.
I say 8:42 a.m. launch. You say scrub.
Well, listen,
50%.
listen. I mean, they're making good progress on fuel up. There is always a chance that they'd go into some kind of hold or something. They have some flexibility of rearranging the actual T0 time once they get kind of closer in. But the big one is at T minus 16 minutes and 40 seconds technically is when they would start chilling the Raptor engines. If you haven't watched my video on how to start a rocket engine, you need to watch that. You'll understand why you thermally condition a rocket engine. And it's because, remember, we keep talking about how cold. Andrew, hit that shot of the pad 1 shot where you see the
So, if you see me off and on camera, you have to excuse me. I actually have plans to do things like the gym and a few other things this morning, and my ride will be coming. in like an hour and a half, so I actually might be watching the launch from my cell phone in a cab. That being said, need to get dressed too.
Heat. One of the
What?
biggest causes of failure is if it's not properly cooled down, because those pumps are going to start flowing thousands of liters per second of fuel. I mean, it's just an unreasonably amount of fuel that's freezing cold. Well, not freezing technically, but cryogenically cold, flowing through those pumps. And if those pumps aren't cold beforehand, before they start flowing, they're going to crack and basically explode right away. So that's the bearings, all of it just needs to be conditioned for that. So we're going to see that at T-minus 16 minutes and 40 seconds. And that would be a huge thing because that means they're beyond. That's like we are getting close. You know, that's a really good sign. So if we start to see Raptor chill down at T-minus 16 minutes, and that's absolutely monumental. Yeah. Oh, this is awesome. Thank you so much, Jordan A. Grab some breakfast and coffee. Thank you. We have a team here of how many people? I mean, it's like a dozen?
Let me open the spreadsheet.
It's yeah. I mean, it's literally about a dozen.
Beautiful, beautiful humans.
People have been working all night.
So hard.
And yeah, we're going to have a big, giant breakfast feast. Whatever happens.
Call it brunch.
Oh, interesting. What? You mean like a lunch and a
breakfast put together.
Weird.
Yes.
Yeah. We're going to have something, and thank you so much for that support, because there's a lot of mouths to feed and house and air mattresses.
You should see the whole floor is covered in air mattresses.
Oh my gosh. It's
fun.
It's summer camp.
Yeah, it's super fun. I feel like a child, a kid in a candy shop.
Oh man.
It'll be my life when I move into my new place for a bit.
NASA asset, or is it a NASET? Get it? NASA asset,
oh.
NASET. Sorry, and no, it isn't a U-2. The WB-57 is based on the Canberra bomber with larger wings. It's not the same as the U-2. Okay.
Oh.
I love pedants. I will take that. I want to read about this now real quick, because I will gladly. It's actually, I did not realize. I thought it was literally based on the fuselage and everything of the U-2. Crazy. Yeah. But it has bigger wings. It's 60,000 foot, max altitude. That's insane. Like, that's very, very high up. Yeah. From Ashman Cigar, Tim, you are going to be sitting on that rocket.
How do you feel?
That's terrifying now.
Wait. Let's take a second. How do you feel?
Right now, I don't let myself honestly feel that much about it yet, you know, because it's just like, I don't know, it's still far away. We have to see a million of these things do stuff before I get anywhere near that thing.
Yeah.
I'm excited though. Like I just want to see it fly. Like this will help make it feel more real, you know, and as we eventually get into training and stuff, like that will definitely start to cement it. But yeah, right now I'm just a mixture of excited, nervous. Like I'm focused right now on today, on the live stream, and on you know, trying to actually absorb that we're going to be seeing this thing finally fly. But yeah, I'm not there yet as far as even thinking too much about the fact that I'm going to be a passenger on it yet. It really isn't like, it's not a daily thought even.
Wow.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Like I'm going to go to the moon, yet I'm not even thinking about it that often. Is that weird?
I mean, it's like a dream. Right?
Yeah. Not until it becomes like my daily routine of like, I got to get up and
dream
train.
Becomes reality,
you know,
once you see
or
it
whatever.
take off.
Until then, I probably just won't feel that different, you know?
Sometimes it hits me and I'm like, Tim's going to the moon. It just happens in these random moments every few days or something.
Every now and then, like on a clear night, I look out and see the moon, and I'll just be like,
oh,
"That's insane!" Like
wow.
that just. I've stopped in my tracks, just like I'm gonna fly around that thing. Like it's the craziest thing. It's the most Willy Wonka thing ever.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, that's the way Cyan described her golden ticket moment.
Was it
mm-hmm.
Willy Wonka?
Like winning the golden ticket.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just Oh man. Let's see here. Yeah, that's true. I'll feel it when I get fitted for the suit. That's very true, dear noobs in Discord. Brandon House, thank you for all you do. Every time I watch one of your videos, I always learn crazy things that make space travel more awe-inspiring. Keep up the good work, Tim. I hope. Oh, it went away. We're like, our queue is so full. It's like clearing out in tomorrow chat.
Beautiful problem, but
yes,
yeah, it's hard to keep up
hard.
with everything.
Yeah, see, I don't know. I don't think that's really SpaceX.
Velocity. It is an eccentric orbit, so even though it's orbital velocity, it isn't orbit. So yeah, it's very pedantic, and I'm actually working on a video right now about orbit versus suborbit, and this is going to have to take up, a little bit of debate time. Is why this is what it is, and why you can't really consider it orbital, because it's not targeting, and it's never at any point its trajectory, where it's going, and how fast it's going, is never in a stable orbit. So you can tell. All you need is basically 2 points to know like where it is and where it's going, to know how fast it is and where it's going. You can calculate, where it will continue to go. And at no point is this vehicle ever actually in a stable orbit. So it'll be intentionally, all things considered, and if everything goes to plan, which, the flight trajectory is going to be rather conservative, I'm sure. It will be suborbital. It'll reach orbital velocity, near orbital velocity, again, being pedantic, but which the important thing is testing the re-entry, seeing if it can even get through the re-entry phase. So, yes, good thing to note. Dom, thank you so much for becoming a member. This is awesome, Alec. I'd love to hear this. Watching, listening from home with my 7-month-old son. Tim and team, thank you for sparking my excitement about space and encouraging more optimism about our future on Earth and amongst the stars. Thank you so much. I love when families are watching.
I love that.
Kids, get those kids up and probably not yet. Keep them if it's West Coast or something. Keep them in bed. No, we don't want to totally screw up their.
But we
their
are
sleep
within
schedule or
1
something.
hour.
We are within 1 hour. I would say within about half hour.
Man, a kid's really excited about this. Wouldn't be able to.
How you doing, Ben?
Master of the drone shot.
What?
Isn't it funny when someone cleans the kitchen and then you're just like, where's the pterodactyl?
Yeah.
Because that's your kitchen.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The decoder, the Killaview, or no, the pterodactyl? Ooh, no idea. I ain't been seeing that for. We ain't seen one of them around here for days.
All I did was put a latte machine on the counter.
Oh, yeah, sorry. There might be some friendly characters walking around at some point looking for decoders. That's just the way our life is. All right. I will, Ganja, what would your launch song at T-minus 10 seconds be?
Ooh, I like this question.
What would yours be?
An Ending Ascent by Brian Eno. I walked down the aisle to that song.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It's from his Apollo soundtracks.
Oh,
and
okay.
every time, Ryan and I had this ritual of every time we would drive to the VAB when we first met, and we would make that trek late at night for a launch. We'd go out near the causeway or the press site. That's the song we would play. But
that's cool.
What would you do?
I mean, I keep writing songs that are like...
Yeah, they're epic.
That are like for liftoff,
yes. So I was wondering...
Ascent would probably be... I mean, I wrote it to be that, or the one that's supposed to be coming out today. I don't know if it did.
Tell us about your new song.
I did write a new song. It was the intro, if you guys watched the intro. New song called Cryo, and it's based on what I hope Starship looks and sounds and feels like.
I love that song.
But other than that, I don't really know... I mean, half of the Sigur Rós songs out there sound epic and launchy
and like reverent and
yeah. So I don't really know all of them. How about all of them?
Yes, all.
We
songs
definitely
at
won't be
once.
playing music now because we're gonna have the most beautiful music to our ears ever, which is going to be 33 Raptor engines.
Oh, I can't wait to hear that.
Oh my gosh. From James, any chance SpaceX might sneak a landing burn in? Well, I'm expecting out of the booster, and we have tracking assets that will be able to hopefully see it over the horizon even. So we will see. We will see. And hopefully we'll be able to actually confirm that today, assuming that it gets that far. So yes, but not for the upper stage. I just really don't think they even care. It's just like we know we can do that. Let's first kind of close this door, and then at some point we'll merge the two things, and it'll be great. Thomas Jones saying, how do they make sure the booster and the ship sink afterwards? Wouldn't the pressurized tank float? Yep, they'll open the valves and let it drain and let it get filled up with water, and it will sink. And then it'll become just like most other sea vessels that are sunk and all that stuff too. Of course, that's not the end goal of Starship. Eventually, Starship, if it ends up in the ocean, that'd be a horrible day, you know. But today, it's going to take the fate of most rockets throughout history, which is take a little swim.
Yeah.
Become a new coral reef.
And I'm sorry if you already answered this, but I've seen this question a few times. Are they going to try to wrangle that thing back in?
By all accounts, it sounds like they're intending to sink them.
Okay.
Both the booster and the upper stage.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, that's always.
I'd love to go on that deep sea mission.
Right.
Hey everyone, we're right about to cross 100,000 people watching live. Thank you so much, everyone. Please just throw a thumbs up. That always helps the algorithm. It'd be great. And real quick, just we're gonna do something now. Don't type it yet.
Oh.
I command you, don't type yet. But I want to get your scale through 1 through 10 of, do you think A, it's going to launch today? Like 1 being like absolutely not, 10, yes, it's going to launch. And then
8
slash, don't type yet. Another 1 through 10. How successful do you think it's going to be? 1 blows up on the pad. 10, it reaches every single
8.
milestone. So we'll say 5 would be like stage separation. 6 would be second stage ignition. How about that? Like that's kind of the gauge. I'm feeling like I'm about an 8 for the first one.
Wow, that's great.
I have a feeling they're going to launch it if they can, and I'm still about a 6.
You said you were 50-50 on Scrub earlier, so you shifting right now in real time?
Yeah, I'm seeing it fuel up. I mean, it is feeling more and more and more real.
I'm with you. I am a 10 for. I'm 10.
You're 10.
10.
I'm an optimist, and I feel like why not? and honestly, I trust in the SpaceX team.
Yeah.
So much.
I mean, I do too, but there's things out of their control, you know.
I know,
and
but
also,
why not dream? You know.
I'm sure they're all sitting there this morning, like, why not dream? They have a big poster with a cat on it or
neon
something.
sign.
Yeah.
Why not dream?
Why not dream?
Over every computer.
We have a lot of like fairly high, actually, fairly optimistic crowd here. I mean, I don't disagree.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I still think it could be 5-5. You know, no idea.
You are just shifting around.
I mean,
right?
That's the thing is I have no idea. No one knows until it happens. Oh man. This is from John Lawrence. Thank you so much. Good morning, Tim. You bring valuable content to people like us who want to learn more about space. Keep up the amazing work. I have some awesome videos. One that's already done will be released, I don't know, probably in a week or two. But our Patreon members and Discord members and you know, YouTube members have already seen the first cut of it. It's me going through and pointing out a lot of features on engines in real life. Like I go and we're at the Space Expo Center outside of S-Tech in the Netherlands, and I go around and do a tour of 2 engines that I know basically nothing about, Vulcan 1 and Viking 1 engines. And the Viking 1 has a cutaway, so we actually get to see inside the engine. So I'm sitting there, you know, and I'm just observing, like, what can I figure out about this engine from just observations. So it's kind of a fun, like, a walk through thought experiment with me not studying those engines at all, so I don't know the answers. So that's what's fun about it. It's like, well, what can we figure out? Oh, it has an ablatively cooled throat. Look at this, you know, carbon liner. Oh, look at the annular injector. Like, I've never seen one of those before. So I'm sitting there going like, what is this? It was really fun, actually. And I think it's a really cool video. So that's coming out in like a week or two. But then we also are doing a video about orbit versus suborbit, as well as a video after that about kind of a why don't you just launch from a mountain? Why don't you launch from use slingshots? Why don't you use launch from an airplane?
Why don't you have a space elevator?
Why don't you have a space? That's kind of that. Adding them, crap. You're adding to my list. But yeah, it's because it's all related to this orbit versus suborbit and just kind of the trade of things. Let's see here.
SpaceX is going to go live, I think, in 4 minutes. Just FYI.
That
Getting
is
real
crazy.
frosty,
Yeah.
Andrew says.
Yeah, I mean it is.
Real frosty.
That is crazy. I can't believe. Like, I'm not ready.
I'm ready. Let's do it. Come on. When are you going to be ready? It's like marriage. You just got to do it.
Gotta do it. Oh my God. Oh, this is a good question from Timberwolf. When Starship Moonlander gets built, how will it land on the uneven surface? It's so tall, surely giant splay legs will need to be added to the design. Of course, yes. The lunar lander will be a separate variant of Starship. It's not going to look anything like this. It will need big, large landing legs that can self-level. That's already been talked about even. I wouldn't be surprised if it only has 3. I almost expect it to end up being similar to like Falcon 9 style landing legs.
Yeah.
That like fold out and then have just a big, wide base, because that's going to be important. The vehicle, the upper stage of the rocket is like 50 meters tall. It's 165 feet tall. It's huge. That's going to be an apartment building on the moon. Just in one go. And obviously, and by the way, that's been paid for. Yeah. That's happening. That is happening. Part of this program. This is built in and baked into NASA's Artemis program. So NASA, that whole NASA versus SpaceX thing, this is also NASA's baby too. They care about this a lot.
And working together.
Yes.
This is the point.
They're providing support. They're doing, it's absolutely all the above. So anyway, it'll be a different beast, basically. The one that, a big fat mosquito.
I got to tell you, the mosquitoes here. If you haven't heard about them yet,
now
let's
you
talk
are.
about them now. They're massive.
They're the second biggest flying thing in South Texas.
That's right.
Oh man, it is just nasty. Let's see. This is a good question. What's the furthest visible you'll be able to see the launch? Will you be able to see it from Austin? I'm not sure. Daylight will make it harder to see. It would probably you would likely be able to have line of sight to it from even as far north as Austin at some points in flight, but it's going to be broad daylight. It's going to be a tiny speck. If this was a night launch, you might be able to see it better. Or if it was something that had solid rocket boosters and left a big trail behind it, this will not leave a visible smoke trail, really. I mean, it'll have a tiny bit of a smoke trail, but nothing like the space shuttle, something like that had the big white cloud behind it. It'll have a little bit of dark soot. There's a tiny bit of carbon burnt, but nothing even compared to RP-1. So not even as bad as like a Falcon 9.
Pretty clean.
Or a Falcon Heavy.
Yeah.
Pretty clean burning. So you won't be able to see the trail. So during the daylight, you just won't really see much. At night, maybe it'd be brighter, and then you'd be able to see it a little bit better. So, yeah. Let's see here. I keep missing some
Elon's mom.
Again, there's so many insanely generous super chats. Space Gator, thank you so much for your support. I mean, I've missed some really big ones, and I'm so sorry that I'm going to be missing these. Steve Howell, this one's huge. Hang on, Steve Howell.
There's that.
I'm just going to put this one up on air. Love the content. 54-year-old in Australia.
Part of it.
Watch Star Hopper launch. Will remember it for the rest of my life. Time for the next chapter. Here is something for the barbecue. Your team is amazing. Love the feeds. Good luck on your ride on one of these babies. Thank you so much, Steve. That really, really means a lot. This is the big day, and I can't believe it's here. Literally, I actually can't. I'm having denial almost that this is finally happening. Like I said,
don't deny it.
I know.
Do not deny.
Another huge super chat too from Chris Caputo. Thank you for your dedication and enthusiasm. You're so welcome. Thank you guys again for just tuning in. That really, really, really means the world. Everyone say thank you to Chris and to Steve. Very, very, very generous. Thank you so much. We're gonna, if this thing launches today, we're going to feast and party and enjoy the fact that we just watched the world's largest, most powerful rocket to ever fly. It's something I've been waiting to see. This and Artemis. I mean, within one calendar year, we're seeing Artemis held the title since November now as the most powerful rocket to ever launch.
Yes.
Ironically, it's not the most capable rocket. Even the Saturn V, which was less powerful, was more capable, could take more payload to lunar orbit than SLS. But as far as thrust at liftoff, most powerful so far. Until this thing lifts off. When this thing leaves the pad, it'll be the most powerful rocket to ever launch.
I love that there are competitions for the largest, most powerful rocket, methane rockets getting to orbit this year.
This year is like the year of firsts. I mean, it's funny because when our team is writing pre-launch previews, so, we're always looking for those, is this a milestone? And every rocket that's flying right now is some crazy milestone of we've never tried this before.
Yeah.
How cool is that? That we're just in that day and time where that's happening, where there's innovation happening at a pace that we've never seen before. And obviously NASA and the Soviet Union did an unbelievable amount of iteration and development.
SpaceX just went live.
SpaceX has gone live.
FYI. This means they are really
Holy
moving
crap.
toward a launch attempt. 828.
Oh my gosh. That's huge. That's big. Wow. Okay. It is happening, guys. It is happening. Yeah. I can't believe this. They obviously think something's happening. I hear crickets right now, by the way.
I love these crickets.
I love it too. Oh man. Okay, Jeremy Olson, thank you so much for becoming a member. Much, much, much appreciated. Jim Ingersoll also. So yeah, Simon McGovern loves the callback to our ludicrous feature with why don't they just? Let's see. I'm gonna keep trying to answer. What's the countdown sequence of Starship? Let me pull it up for you guys. We actually have a really cool thing here. I'll get this up on air for you guys to read with me. This is on SpaceX's website. They actually have, we know what to expect here. The countdown, what we expect to see here. So, yeah, at T-minus 2 hours, that's when the flight director called the poll for the go or no go for prop load. The booster locks, liquid oxygen load began at T-minus 1 hour and 39 minutes, along with booster fuel, liquid methane. At T-minus 1 hour and 22 minutes is when we saw the ship begin to load with liquid methane. At T-minus 1 hour and 17 minutes is when we saw the LOX load begin. So the next big milestone here that we're expecting in about half hour is to see the Raptor engine chill down. So that's again where we're going to see, they're going to start basically filling. They open up the pre-valves, which will allow fuel to fill up the voids and start to literally like fill into the Raptor engines. And of course the Raptor engines are ambient temperature. They're, I don't know, 18 degrees, 20 degrees, Celsius, whatever it is today-ish. So they're probably about that same temperature, more or less. That's going to boil off methane. It's going to have to take and remove all the heat from the engines. So the engines and the turbo pumps are down to the same temperature, close to the same temperature as liquid methane. So that when those pumps start spinning, they are already at the operating temperature and they don't experience thermal shock. So that will begin at T-minus 16 minutes and 40 seconds. At T-minus 40 seconds, that's when the fluid interface will begin their vent down sequence. I think that's when we basically see some of the valves close. You're going to start seeing a lot more condensation, a lot more activity pouring out of the rocket. T-minus 8 seconds, Raptor startup. So it will.
We're just gonna let SpaceX take it over from here. Woo.
Good morning. You're looking at a live view of Starship as it awaits its first ever integrated flight test from Starbase, Texas, in just a little over 40 minutes from now. Today, we're hoping to see our Super Heavy booster and Starship spacecraft, collectively referred to as Starship, lift off together for the first time. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Kate Tice, Quality Systems Engineering Manager here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California.
And I'm Shiva Bharadwaj, a space operations engineer here at SpaceX. Now, as many of you know, Starship is SpaceX's latest and largest vehicle developed to date. It represents a fully reusable transportation system designed to carry both crew and cargo to Earth orbit, the Moon, Mars, and beyond.
If you've been following the development of Starship over the last couple of years, you know we've been doing a lot of testing leading up to this big one. Once fully developed, it will be the world's most powerful launch vehicle with twice the thrust of Saturn V rocket and the ability to carry up to 150 metric tons to orbit. For reference, a 1 liter bottle of water is 1 kilogram, so 150 metric tons is basically 150,000 1 liter bottles of water, or as I like to think of it, one rather lonely blue whale.
Now, today's test will be the first of many as we work towards transitioning Starship from a developmental to an operational program. Our primary objective today is to gather as much data as we can around the fully integrated vehicles. That means the booster and the Starship and the ground systems. While we have flown Starship in the past, this will be the first attempt of Super Heavy and the first opportunity to validate how the two vehicles operate together.
Any data that we get helps improve the future builds of Starship will be considered a success for the purposes of today's test. Every milestone beyond that is icing on the cake. The further we fly, the more data we can collect. If all goes well, today's flight test could last as long as 90 minutes from liftoff to an expected hard ocean landing for Starship.
Lovely.
Whether we end the test with a hard landing or a rapid unscheduled disassembly, or some combination of both, excitement is pretty much guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
Now, if it does all go well, Super Heavy will fire up its 33 Raptor engines, and it'll lift off from the launch pad down in South Texas. About 3 minutes into the flight, we're going to hope to see the Super Heavy separate from the Starship spacecraft. It'll then perform a flip maneuver. So there's that. You can see that on your screen. And then it'll boost back in order to make a hard landing in the Gulf of Mexico.
And while that's happening, we hope to see Starship's 6-second stage engines ignite and watch as Starship coasts for about an hour at altitudes ranging between 150 and 250
He's going to go all the way around the
before
world?
re-entering Earth's
Okay,
atmosphere
Superman.
and make its own hard landing in the Pacific Ocean about
pretty much going
250-ish
to
kilometers
almost
offshore.
circle the whole planet. That's crazy.
Now, we are getting great camera views right now, but that's because we are on the launch pad, so we've got umbilicals and connections straight to the vehicle, but we aren't expecting to get very many good views once we get past booster separation.
Yeah, we do promise, though, for any views that we do get, we will share them in real time. We are watching live with you all, so we're excited to see those views ourselves as well.
Now, in a little bit, we are going to take a closer look at the vehicle and the launch pad. But first, today is a super exciting day. Everyone on the teams across Starship have been preparing, doing a number of tests and dress rehearsals for today's launch attempt.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, we saw a nice little recap of those tests in the intro video to today's webcast. For those of you that are following along, you know that many of those tests ended in those rapid unscheduled disassemblies, or RUDs as we like to call them. And it's been a long road to today. Just in 2022 alone, we had 9 static fires. We've had a couple of wet dress rehearsals. And of course, the launch control team has done numerous simulations as well.
So major shout out to the teams that have been preparing for today's full up integrated test. In fact, we've got a shot of Star Command at the South Texas launch control team. Look at all the people ready for today's launch attempt.
Yeah, that right there is our South Texas Launch Control Center. That is basically ground zero for everything that is happening today, in addition to a couple other control rooms that we have operating as well with operators on console, including the Mission Control Center here behind us here in Hawthorne, California. But with that being said, our very own Zachary Lupin is one of our SpaceX employees at our watch event in South Padre Island. Hey, Zach, how are things going on the ground?
It is a great day for a test launch today, Kate. Hello, everyone. My name is Zachary Lupin, and I'm an avionics reliability engineer here at SpaceX, and I'm at the Cameron County Amphitheater, where a growing number of SpaceX employees are gathering to watch what we hope is the first liftoff of a fully integrated Starship. Now, the Starship team has worked incredibly hard for today's launch test. Over the past weekend, teams held a launch readiness review, which included a comprehensive review of all of our vehicle systems, looking at avionics, GNC, communications, software, structures, as well as our Raptor engines and propulsion in general. Now, we are only about 5 miles away from the launch pad, so it's a pretty good view for today. And as we get into As we start to approach T-0, everyone here is clearly very excited for the events that are happening today. So as we get closer to T0, I'm going to throw it back to Hawthorne to talk more about a rocket.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Zach. And we've actually got a little bit of a crowd forming behind us, too. Now, we've got a shot of Starship on the screen. The entire Starship structure you see is made of stainless steel. And when that's fully stacked, it stands about 120 meters tall and about 9 meters around. To help you give a sense of just how big that is, we've captured a video of some of our teams doing final integration prep work in advance of today's test flight.
Just like Falcon 9, Starship has 2 stages, which we will talk a little bit more about in a minute. But in addition to those 2 stages, Starship actually has a 3rd stage called Stage 0. It consists of all the launch pad infrastructure built around the rocket. You can see a great view of it there on your screen. It's truly an engineering feat in its own right.
And I feel like it's something we don't talk about very often. There's a lot of infrastructure that goes into fueling and preparing the launch vehicle before a large test like this, really any launch. Now, let's talk about Super Heavy. The name says it all. It's super, it's heavy, it's super heavy. It goes by some other names, the first stage or the booster, but whatever you call it, the Super Heavy will be the vehicle responsible for powering Starship against that mighty gravitational pull we've got here on Earth. And when it's fully operational, it's going to get Starship to orbit.
The booster alone stands about 70 meters tall and is about the same height as a fully integrated Falcon 9, but with a diameter roughly 2.5 times that of Falcon 9 and with 33 much larger engines.
Yeah, and having those engines, and oh my gosh, I love this shot. We can see looking up into the launch mount at the 33 engines on the booster. Those are each of the Raptor engines that's going to power today's launch attempt.
Yeah, this is an incredible view. One of my favorite views that we're going to get today. We don't have this kind of view on our Falcon 9 launches, so this is so exciting to see. You can even make out the paint markers indicating which engine is which. Like we said, there are 33 of them.
Mainly because I'm 33.
There's a lot of fire that's going to be coming out from those engines in just over 31 minutes from now. As we mentioned before, there are 33 of them on the Super Heavy, the booster, and we don't see it right now, but the cluster in the center are the ones that are actually going to gimbal and help steer the booster back down for its water landing in the Gulf.
Yeah, and they're a little bit different, Kate, than our Falcon engines. So on Falcon, we use a gas generator cycle. Here's a fantastic shot, actually, at the inner stage, so we can see the 6 engines that are on the ship side, 3 gimbaling in the middle, and then the vacuum engines, you can see 2 of them, and the other ones on the other side of the cluster in the middle here. So Raptor's a little bit different. It uses something called stage combustion, which means we basically pre-burn both the fuel side and the ox side, and then get those up to the right temperatures and pressures, and then mix them in the combustion chamber. It allows us to get higher thrust and higher efficiency on these engines than on Falcon 9. Now, Super Heavy also has 4 grid fins to assist with orienting itself during the return back to Earth, as today is the fully integrated flight test, and the first one, we're focusing on safely testing just the fundamental systems and operations of the vehicle.
So excited.
So what that means is we won't be attempting to land on land today.
Ever.
Instead, Super Heavy is going to be making that hard water landing in the Gulf.
Probably be viewing it on this.
Starship, or the spacecraft, is the 2nd stage and makes up the top portion of the vehicle. It's designed for carrying passengers and cargo between destinations on Earth, Earth orbit, and planetary destinations. It stands 50 meters tall, a little taller than the Statue of Liberty. It's comprised of 6 Raptors. We saw those just moments ago. 3 of them are optimized for sea level, and the other 3 are vacuum engines. And they're optimized to operate in the vacuum of space. They provide a maximum of 258,000 tons of thrust in vacuum. The spacecraft is also outfitted with 4 flaps to help aerodynamically control the vehicle's attitude during atmospheric flight and enable precise landing at the intended location. You can see a view of those flaps there.
Now you can see the entire stack is vertical, and that's because Starship is designed for vertical takeoff and landing, as opposed to taking off and landing like an airplane. And that's really important because we don't have runways on the Moon and Mars. Fortunately, gravity at both of those destinations is not nearly as high as it is here on Earth. On Mars, it's about a third of what Earth's gravity is, and on the Moon, the gravity is just a sixth of what it is here. So Starship can take off in both of those cases without needing the super heavy booster like we need here on Earth. Now, for today's test, Starship does not have its landing legs attached, and that's because we aren't going to be attempting to return to the launch site or land on land. It's going to be doing another hard water landing at the end of today's test.
We can't wait. Starship is wrapped in a heat shield, which is composed of 18,000 hexagonal ceramic tiles designed to insulate the vehicle during atmospheric entry, where temperatures can be as high as 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit. The hex-shaped tiles, like these ones that we have here, roughly make up about 2/3 of the vehicle. There's a couple of different geometries. The one that I have is for the circular portions of the vehicle, so it has this curvature to it, and the one that Shiva has.
Yeah, this kind is a hexagonal shape, and there's several thousand of these all across the body of the vehicle. And it's worth saying we need these because when a spacecraft re-enters from orbital velocity, it's going faster than the speed of sound and causes a lot of heat to build up that has to get dissipated by these heat shield tiles.
Yeah, one thing that's really cool about these is they're super lightweight. Even just holding them, we're able to even just like hear how hollow they are because of the construction. But they do a great job of dispersing that heat during that atmospheric reentry. We actually produce these in-house at what we like to call the SpaceX bakeries.
Okay,
they're
so I have to
located
finish
in
getting
Texas
ready.
and Florida.
My
So
cab
it's
also
something
just
that
called.
we designed
Like I said,
and
I'll probably
build
be watching
in-house.
the
And,
launch
like we
from
said,
myself.
there's thousands of them. You
can you
can kind
do?
of see them on the exterior of the vehicle. So at this point in time, we are at T-minus 27 minutes and 18 seconds. So let's head on over to John Innsbrucker for an update on the countdown. Hey, John.
Thanks, Kate, and good morning. I'm John Innsbrucker, Principal Integration Engineer here at SpaceX. We're currently loading propellant from the ground system into both the first and second stages. Now, both vehicles use the same two propellants. Our fuel is liquid methane at a temperature of just over 100 kelvins, or about minus 272 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, this is a different fuel from Falcon 9, where we use RP1 kerosene. And our oxidizer is liquid oxygen, the same as Falcon 9. But because there's no oxygen in space to support combustion, we have to bring our own. Now, a little bit of a recap. We did the go, no go poll at T-minus 1 hour and 45 minutes. And once the team gave their goes, we polled about 20 folks. We started loading propellants onto the booster at T-minus 1 hour and 39 minutes. And at T-minus 1 hour and 22 minutes, we began propellant loading of the ship, the second stage on Starship. Now, LOX loading of the second stage main tank is almost complete right now, but we'll actually stretch it out and wrap it up and finish at T-minus 5 minutes. And then at T-minus 3 minutes, as the booster finishes loading, the vehicle will be fully loaded with just over 10 million pounds propellant. Now, currently in the countdown, we've just passed the T-minus 26 minute mark. The good news is weather's looking good. You can see the blue skies there on the camera views from the drone.
Aerial shots, man.
The only thing we're watching is winds. They are within limits at
Main
ground
reason
level.
even live or recording
We
this is
expect they may
I
pick up a
just-
little bit as we get
when I'm
farther into the
40
window,
or
should we
50
need
or
to go that
60,
far. But the good
I wanna
news
have
right now is that the weather
me
is looking
watching
good. The range
this
also is looking pretty good. We've moved almost all the
So I'm gonna
boats out of
try.
the keep out zone overnight. We are
Stay and watch
working
this
one,
launch.
but we're still underway. And right now,
I'm
as a
sure I can
reminder,
explain it to my
if for
cat
any
better.
reason we do not make our test flight today, we have backup launch windows. This could be either 24 or 48 hours after today, and it'll depend on how far we get into
I mean,
the
they usually
countdown.
come early.
But coming up on
Scheduled
25
for
minutes to go, everything is
7:40.
looking good, Kate.
In order to
be
make
good,
life
but does it come
multiplanetary,
early?
we need a fully reusable vehicle that's capable of
Life.
carrying a huge amount of cargo and a lot of people to orbit and have a pretty quick turnaround. The idea is to effectively reuse launch vehicles just like airplanes. crowd is getting excited here in Hawthorne behind Mission Control, as you can hear. Now, imagine if you had to wait for a new airplane to be constructed every time you wanted to fly. You'd rarely go anywhere, and it would probably be completely unaffordable for most of us.
Yep.
In order for us to get to Mars and
It
back
already
with
makes
lots of
them
people,
like
multiple
10
times,
times cheaper
usability is a
than
must.
the DoD did.
Now, in the near term and a bit
According to the court
closer
case
to
in which
home here on Earth,
he went
Starship
to
will be
after
critical to other
he did
programs
the
as well.
5 successful
Once it's
launches?
operational, Starship will deliver the full-size and upgraded version of our Starlink satellites. And that's super exciting because our next generation satellites represent a step forward in Starlink's capabilities and will provide more bandwidth and increased reliability to connect millions of people around the world with high-speed
That's the way
internet.
Starship's supposed to bust out them
And
satellites.
of course, Starship will fly a number
That's
of human
cool.
spaceflight missions in the lead
like
up
2
to our
stacks
first
of, like,
missions to Mars.
I don't know,
Entrepreneur
50?
and pilot
Maybe
Jared
more? 100?
Isaacman will command the first human spaceflight
100,
on
200
Starship
total?
as part of the
Maybe
Polaris
3?
program. Jared served as a commander for Inspiration 4, the first all-civilian mission to orbit. Inspiration 4 launched aboard our Dragon spacecraft and Falcon 9 in September 2021, raising over $240 million for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. The first human spaceflight on Starship will launch as part of the Polaris program, and you can learn more about that series of missions at polarisprogram.com.
Now, our first lunar mission around the moon aboard Starship will be led by Japanese entrepreneur Yusaku Maezawa, also known as MZ. MZ flew to space for the first time in December 2021, and he purchased all of the seats aboard Starship's first lunar mission in order to give artists and creators from all over the world the opportunity to go. And the hope is that what they will create in space will further inspire all of us here back on planet Earth. Now, over 1 million people applied for this mission, and earlier this year, they announced the final 8 crew members were selected, and you can learn more about them and MZ's mission at dearmoon.earth.
Dennis and Akiko Tito are the first 2 crew members announced to fly on Starship's second commercial spaceflight around the moon. This will be Dennis's second mission to space after becoming the first commercial astronaut to visit the International Space Station in 2001, and Akiko will be among the first women to fly around the moon on a Starship. The Titos joined the mission to contribute to SpaceX's long-term goal to advance human spaceflight and help make life multiplanetary.
SpaceX is also incredibly honored to be part of NASA's Artemis program to establish a sustainable presence on the moon to prepare for missions to Mars. Starship's early test launches, followed by those regular Starlink deployment missions and propellant transfer demonstrations, are directly advancing NASA's Artemis program, along with SpaceX's ongoing mission to make life multiplanetary.
SpaceX will conduct an uncrewed demonstration mission to the moon prior to the Artemis 3 mission, which will mark humanity's first return to the lunar surface in more than 50 years. It's an exciting future, but let's talk a little about how we got to today.
Now, Starship testing ramped up in July of 2019 with the Star Hopper prototype. It's sort of a short version of the Starship that we see today. There's a picture of it on your screen, the lovable water tower. Now, standing at just over 18 meters tall, the Star Hopper had a single engine and was test flown to perform landing and low-level altitude maneuvers. Starship's initial flight test was a hop that reached about 20 meters in altitude. This was followed by a second hop, the one that we've got on our screen, that rose to 150 meters in altitude. We took a little jaunt away from the launch pad and ended up landing about 100 meters or so further away from it, and you can see that on your screen. Now, notably, this was the first time that we had used a Raptor engine in flight and demonstrated control of this kind.
As a Star Wars fan, I can't not see a flying R2-D2 there. Now, after a series of 150-meter hop tests with earlier prototypes, the Starship program saw a huge breakthrough during a test flight of the vehicle known as serial number 8, or SN8. SN8 demonstrated a first-of-its-kind controlled aerodynamic descent and landing flip maneuver. Yes, I'm talking about the belly flop. This 12.5 kilometer hop test took place December 2020 and saw the SN8 prototype ascend to an altitude of 12.5 kilometers and conduct a belly flop maneuver. While it didn't stick the landing, the test was a major milestone in the development of Starship.
I love seeing the belly flop maneuver. Now, testing continued with the prototype on serial number 9. That was a 10-kilometer flight test in February of 2021. We had a nominal ascent, engine cutoff, reorientation, and controlled descent were stable. However, we unfortunately had a dramatic ending to the end of that flight when we had a failure on its engine to relight. That resulted in one of those rapid unscheduled disassemblies. But what was really, really exciting about both serial numbers 8 and 9 is how quickly we were able to achieve just our primary objectives in those 2 high-altitude test flights. In addition to getting lots of great data, Starship successfully demonstrated control of the vehicle and subsonic re-entry capability.
Ultimately, we performed 9 Starship high-altitude test flights in total, and in May of 2021, SN15 launched from Starbase, reached an altitude of about 10 kilometers, performed a number of maneuvers, and safely returned to the launch site. This was the first Starship prototype to fly, control its descent, safely land, and to be recovered in one piece.
Now, having achieved that success in our suborbital campaign, one of the next big challenges for upper stage reusability is to survive the high heating hypersonic phase of entry. Combined with the ability to refill our Starship's tank with fuel and oxygen while on orbit is what will enable a fully reusable transportation system that's designed to carry both crew and cargo on these long-duration interplanetary flights, and that's ultimately what will help humanity return to the moon and travel to Mars and beyond in our solar system.
So as you can tell, it is nothing but an iterative process to get to the point that we are today and where we will go from here. That iteration is a core process of how we work here at SpaceX. We like to fly and we like to test early and often, both on the side of hardware and software.
Yeah, that's an awesome point, Kate. Now, we are continuing our countdown to Starship liftoff just over 17 minutes from now. So, of course, let's check in with John for another status update. John?
Thanks, Shiva. Clock is coming up on T-minus 17 minutes from liftoff. We're continuing to click towards 0. However, right now, we've just begun listening in. The first stage team is working a pressurization issue. They're troubleshooting that right now. Now, we do have the option, if need be, if we can't solve this, then we would hold the count and probably treat today as a wet dress and not be able to launch. However, we are continuing to do propellant loading on both the Super Heavy and the ship stages. Now, most recently, we began loading liquid oxygen and methane fuel into the header tanks on Starship. At the very top, just underneath the nose there are 2 small spherical tanks. That's where the fuel and liquid oxygen header tanks are. That started at T-minus 27 minutes, and that propellant loading will continue until T-minus 9 minutes. We'll also continue loading the main tanks of the Starship second stage, although they're pretty much full right now. Everything will drain back as we get ready for launch at T-minus 5 minutes. Now, on the first stage, we're continuing to load the massive amount of propellant onto the Super Heavy booster. That's going to continue until T-minus 3 minutes. You can see the frost line on some of the views as both liquid methane and liquid oxygen go into the tank.
Frosted.
It's 16 minutes and counting. We're also currently configuring the launch pad for liftoff. The booster hold downs are being prepared for the release at liftoff.
Oh crap, this
and
might
the second
really happen.
stage quick disconnect is beginning its configuration for release.
They're
The liquid
troubleshooting that one
oxygen and
problem.
methane that are going into the second stage go through that quick disconnect. You can see it in some of the views, the arm that comes out just to the base of the second stage. That'll move out of the way as we lift off. At the same time, the SpaceX team continues to check in with the Coast Guard.
Behind
We're working one boat that's in the safety perimeter. They are working to get that boat out of the way. We cleared several other boats out overnight. We're down to 1, and we expect that'll be clear so that we can proceed with launch out over the Gulf of Mexico.
Right, move them
But as a
boats.
reminder, T-minus 15 minutes, 10 seconds and counting. We are working an issue on the first stage, and we'll bring an update as we get more insight into that issue.
Be better safe than sorry, though. If we gotta delay it, oh well.
Now, today's test flight is taking place out of our Starbase facility in South Texas, and that facility has gone through a tremendous amount of change and growth in a really short period of time.
Yeah, I mean, 3 years ago, not much even existed there. It was a very different scene, as you can see by that photo there on your screen. Fast forward to today, and the team is building out an entire production line.
Yeah, last year they built 4 Starship Super Heavy boosters, 5 Starships, our 200 Raptor 2 engine, and this year they're targeting 5 boosters, 8
And still managed to
eight
keep some
Starships
green
in
grass.
production for 2023. And really, you do need a production system to rapidly iterate, like we were talking about earlier, on the design of the vehicle as we learn more about it from these large tests.
Yeah, absolutely. Pulling on my industrial engineering background, system fill is something that is critical to that goal. Being able to produce and launch multiple Starships means that we have to have a system full of those production vehicles, and we iterate on each one. So even the next Starship that will fly in whatever the next test is will be different than the one that you see there on your screen now.
Now, the employees who have been at SpaceX a while say that Starbase does remind them of the early Falcon 1 days, except moving a whole lot faster.
The team at Starbase is expanding as fast as the facilities are, and if you've ever wondered what life at Starbase is like, here's a quick peek.
Dude, it's like a dream job, period. To work for SpaceX, or Tesla, or Twitter. Minutes.
Starbase directly employs more than 1,800 employees and is actually the largest employer in the area.
Yeah, and from that video, you can really tell, like, it's a beautiful location. It's close to the ocean. There's tons of wildlife. And that's because being close to the equator is actually a fantastic way to get to orbit.
Yeah, I love that we have so many employee events that allow us to participate with ocean cleanup and other environmental efforts there. We'd also like to thank Cameron County for being so supportive for all of our work in that area. Now, in addition to Starbase, we'll soon be adding another Texas location to the SpaceX family. We're opening a new facility in Bastrop, Texas, just outside of Austin, to support Starlink hardware production. The new facility will be over 500,000 square feet of manufacturing space, and the team has already started hiring.
Now, we have all kinds of openings in production and manufacturing for technicians and leadership and manufacturing engineers and all kinds of site support roles. Basically, if you can think of a role, we're probably hiring for it.
So if you're interested in helping expand human life to other planets or helping internet access here on Earth, consider becoming part of the SpaceX team at spacex.com/careers. Now,
Dude,
with
give
that,
me room
let's
and board, and I will just go be a janitor,
down
like
at Starbase
Goodwill Hunting,
one last time
and just
before launch.
learn
Howdy, Zach.
stuff and live a happy life.
Hello, Kate and Shiva again. You can really feel the energy here at South Padre Island as more of the SpaceX team have gathered. We're standing just over 5 miles away from the launch mount, and so from here we've got a very nice view I would basically say these are some of the best front row seats you could get, and might I add, beachside as well. Now, the Starship team has worked incredibly hard to get ready for this test, and we're all clearly excited for T0. And as we get into the final moments, one issue that could hold the countdown or cancel the test altogether is if a boat enters the safety perimeter. Now, over my shoulder is the Gulf of Mexico, which is normally very open to all of the boaters and fishers. However, today,
so many
SpaceX
people
is
knew
closely
this was going
coordinated
down today,
with the United
so please
States
don't
Coast
have your
Guard
boat
to
out
establish
there.
a safe zone and ensure public safety. And up to T0, SpaceX is in regular communication with the Coast Guard to ensure there are no boats in the area leading up to the launch. Now, fingers crossed that that does
And
not
if there
happen.
is, sue them.
Now,
I'm
I'll
sorry,
throw it back to the folks at Hawthorne as we get closer and closer to that T-0.
Not the day to take your boat out near that area. 9 minutes.
We're just inside T-minus 9 minutes and counting. We're listening on one of the background loops right now. Flight director is talking about the issue we've had on first stage, working the pressurization system. Decision right now is that we are going to stop the launch for today. We're going to transition the launch attempt to a wet dress rehearsal. So that means we're going to continue with the countdown sequence of events. We'll continue loading propellant, finishing up here shortly on the second stage. We'll also continue loading propellant onto the first stage, wrapping up at T-minus 3 minutes. We're also going to go through pressurization steps, other steps of the
next launch,
countdown.
I would assume, would be on 420.
This will be a full validation for the team. But currently the plan right now is we're waiting for final word, is that I think at T-minus 10 seconds, we will finally stop the clock and then recycle the countdown for today.
All right.
Now we're inside T-minus 8 minutes and counting. We're continuing to load propellant on both the first and second stage. You can see the Starship second stage with the heat shield tiles there.
This means the second
Carriage
day we
arms
get to be
are
super
open.
excited.
You can see the condensation around the first stage tank as we load liquid methane to liquid oxygen into the large super heavy first stage. Now that propellant loading is continuing until T-minus 3 minutes. As a reminder, and there's our great view looking up at the Raptor engines, the 33 engines.
Yeah, Thursday.
There's an outer ring of 20 engines, and then there's an inner set of 13. Those are the engines that can gimbal and adjust the course of the Starship vehicle on the way up. And of course, the first stage as it comes back down towards the water landing in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, when both stages are loaded, you can see the condensation frost on the side of the first stage. We'll have just over 10 million pounds of liquid propellant on board. Inside T-minus 7 minutes, we're continuing to count. Team is preparing for the hold and scrub at T-minus 10 seconds. Now, the good news is everything's been going good. We're just working that one issue. So we are continuing to count. Team will get this as an excellent opportunity to run the end-to-end of the system. Now, in a launch, in the next few minutes, the guidance system would be performing its final alignment. We will be doing that this morning. The automated flight termination system would be armed. We won't need to arm it today as we won't be flying. And we'll do final thrust vector control checkouts, what we call wiggles of the Raptor engines on the first and second stages. Now, normally in a countdown, if we needed to hold, there's a view of the second stage Raptor engines just above the first stage. Now, as I mentioned, in a regular countdown, if we needed to hold, that would come at T-minus 40 seconds. That's the point in the countdown where we can pause to wait for final checkouts or pressurization to complete. Now, earlier this morning, we thought we might have to hold at 40 seconds. Everything's looking good, except for the one pressurization issue that the team is going to have to troubleshoot after this morning. So we won't stop at 40 seconds right now. We'll continue all the way down to 10 seconds, and then we'll go into a recycle.
John, you mentioned that we're going to be jumping into a wet dress rehearsal here, and I actually
now
think
we're coming up T-minus 5 minutes. Overall, though, Kate, Shiva, it's been a good day. It's a little sad listening to the flight director say that we're going to have to stop at 10 seconds.
I know,
But
we're all like,
I guess that's for everybody.
no,
It
it's
gives
like-
us a real run through of the launch vehicle.
But
Yeah,
second day of
it's
excitement
unfortunate. Of course,
each-
we wanted to see fire today and lift off, but that's okay. The point of the countdown is to allow the teams to progress to that T0 time in a coordinated fashion, and really to
Everything's
unveil
safe.
any issues prior to the ignition sequence. So the countdown did its job today. It allowed us to identify that press issue, and like John mentioned, the teams are going to work through it, and we are going to basically call it off at T-minus 10 seconds. But the integrated launch teams and us, we are going to treat this as if it were still a launch day. We're going to do this, what we now call a wet dress rehearsal.
Yeah, and we've mentioned the term a couple of times here. We call it a wet dress rehearsal because we are wetting the propellant tanks. We are loading propellant into the vehicle. We've talked about the frost line a little bit here. That exercises the stage 0 system, the ground system, all of our infrastructure that loads propellants onto the pad. That exercises our procedures for the mission control teams. We're monitoring telemetry on the mission control consoles, looking at the pressures and the rates and the temperatures. And some of those things look a little bit different when you're getting up to the pre-flight pressurization levels and full propellant load. So we're learning things today about the integrated tests that are going to set us up for success in a future attempt later on, hopefully in the next 48 hours or so. And Kate, like it's also worth mentioning here, we're still going to take the count through to a pretty around the T-minus 10 second mark. So we're really going to exercise everything that we would up until that point in the vehicle states and ground procedures.
Yeah, it's like we said before, any data that we can collect today is super helpful. And that's exactly what we're doing. We are continuing to collect this data and allow the teams to have be better informed for the next attempt. Unfortunately, due to the needing to recycle the propellant, we are looking at a minimum of 48 hours until we are able to attempt this flight test again. So we're not quite sure what that timing will be at the moment, but we're looking at a minimum of 48 minutes. Or excuse me, of 48 hours at this point in time. But Shiva, exactly as you said, things look a little bit different on launch day. And we allowed the countdown to do its job, to basically get to this point, to allow the teams to work through the issues. And we're going to continue, like we said before, we're going to continue all of this down all the way to T-minus 10 seconds. And that will really allow the teams to pretend like this is launch day and continue and gather that data.
Yeah, Kate, it's on the one hand, it's a little bittersweet. On the other hand, we watched them go all the way through first stage propellant load, just now wrapping up the second stage, even the header tanks up under the nose of the Starship that you can see on the monitors. Actually, that all went very well today. The weather was excellent. Everything was looking good. Sadly, we just have the one issue, but that is letting the team continue to count down. And we're going to continue with it here until we get the clock hold at T-minus 10 seconds.
Yeah, so for those of you that have just joined us, we're now at T-minus 1 minute and 30 seconds to what would have been the launch of our Starship flight test, but unfortunately due to a stage 1 issue, we are going to utilize today as a wet dress rehearsal. Instead, we are not going to attempt launch. The teams are basically saying that we're scrubbing our launch attempt for today, and we are expecting a minimum of 48 hours in order to recycle. So it's all good news, though. There's nothing really to be sad about other than we had hoped to be able to lift off today, but that's okay.
Now, one thing to point out for folks, when we do come back, when we clear this and we fly, one of the things you'll hear in the last minute, you won't be hearing us because we'll be listening to the countdown. But at T-minus 30 seconds, that's when the flight director would give the final go for launch. Love to have heard that this morning, but it's something to look forward to.
Absolutely.
The other thing to look at is at T-minus 6 seconds, we begin lighting the engines. Up on your monitor, you can see there, T-minus 40 seconds. We did hit the 40-second hold point, and they are holding for a moment. In the end, they will release that hold. We'll go the last 30 seconds. But yes, when we do get to day of launch, the last thing to look at is in the last 6 seconds, light the Raptor engines in succession. So unlike Falcon 9, we're going to have to do that a little longer. We're hearing right now the clock is going to hold here at T-minus 40 seconds. The Super Heavy and Starship are looking good.
Beautiful.
So with that, Kate, it's been a fast-paced morning. Kiva, we got through it fairly quickly.
And